to keep it
Right.
Yeah, one place on the other.
Right.
We wouldn't want to see an old industrial
Right.
site.
You have to know that.
I thought this was kind of a shoe in.
So I get her ready for this.
Yes.
I leave
Usually
at 7:30,
yeah.
25 She sits and watches TV until the bus comes. and goes downstairs.
5 o'clock? All right, Peggy.
2.5 years.
Thank you very much.
Ever since his
Let's
own
call this meeting to order.
I don't think she ever will go out to the office.
I don't think she does.
And she works out by the airport, so that.
Mike, we're going to start the meeting if you don't
It
mind.
can be 25 minutes or it can be.
It could be a bit longer.
All right.
No, because my dog, she's afraid she was going.
Thank you much.
In-
5 o'clock? I'll call the meeting to order. Peggy, could we have roll call?
Yes. Jameson.
Yes.
Knudsen.
Yes.
Van Campen.
Here.
Frisch.
Yes.
Stang. Stitch.
Here.
And Miller.
Present. That's item 2. Item 3, approval of the February 8th minutes that were distributed. I'm assuming you all got those. Are there any questions, comments?
I'll move to approve. Second.
All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Any objections? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you very much. Item 4, public appearances. This gives the community opportunity to talk to the park board and come forward. Any opportunities, discussions, we certainly will welcome. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the agenda. It doesn't necessarily mean that the board itself will discuss. We certainly can ask questions. So anybody would like to make any comments to the park board? If you could state your name and address, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, Brian Steffen, 385 North Bergamot Boulevard, up by Mulligan's.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm representing the Oregon Soccer Club today. I'd also like to ask kind of permission if I could use more than 3 minutes. I have a couple requests for field usage, maybe some help from the park department.
It can be appropriate.
Yep, I wrote it down so I won't forget and I don't miss anything. First one is mainly for Jeff with the JC Park project moving forward. We have a lot of goals to move into the different parks.
Sure.
And so we're, I think, a trailer. I think we have our trailer, or maybe we could work with your team.
We have equipment, yep.
Okay.
Absolutely, just give us a list of what you need and where, and we'll take care of it for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Boy, that'd be huge.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
You've got my email?
Yeah, yes I do. So thank you for that, that's great. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to rugby and softball, because with this year, we're on 16 different parks right now for soccer, and we've been working with rugby and softball. They've been great. You know, they're using a certain time, they're letting us onto the park at those other times, so that's really helping us. And with that, we're trying to balance, you know, because I've heard from you, Judy, before in the past about neighborhood parks, trying to minimize the time in neighborhood parks. So some of these requests today are mainly for that kind of opportunity to minimize some of the time on the neighborhood parks, maximize some of the time where we have good parking and stuff. First one is Stats Field. That I think that's open during the
Construction.
Construction.
Yeah, that's, yep.
Yep, and so the field right to the east of that, I think it's field 7 in the what I'll say the list.
Where the old ice rinks used to be.
No, the one next to that. So the ice rink is right next to the pavilion, and the other field kind of runs right up to the green shed.
Pulling up a map here, so.
Okay, that'd
Is
be
that
good.
the one you had asked Alex
Yeah.
Marks about? Yeah,
Yep.
I think I did bring that up to Jeff, and we thought that was probably gonna be within the grading area where there's gonna
Maybe.
be kind of
Well,
our limits
yeah.
of
Yeah, because I
construction, so.
kind of like, yeah, because that one would really help, because that's a U9 field. We're trying to utilize some of the neighborhood parks for little ones, like 7/8.
Mhm.
Can they use those 2 fields that we have out at the bank building site out there? Cause that, okay.
Yep,
good.
we're on
Right.
those two.
Good, Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yep, we just.
Yeah,
got
and
that
thank you.
last night.
That's later in my thing, is a
Yeah.
thank you to you both for setting up that lease. It's a really good, and now we know about it.
Yep, that was approved last night.
Yep,
Mhm.
thank you for doing that. So yeah, I'll let you bring that up quick.
It might be a while.
Okay, yeah, I can come
Yeah,
back
keep
to that
going.
one. And then on stats, I think on the JC Park project, there was an alternative to possibly put a retractable fence in.
It was,
On stats,
not as a bid alternative.
oh, no, I know it isn't.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I'm saying that it was listed as a retractable fence on, I think it was meant for Stats Field.
When it was originally
Yep.
constructed. Yeah, I
And-
remember we had that discussion in a meeting.
Yeah, great. And so what I was asking for is after the baseball season, this would be soccer funded completely. I was wondering if I could possibly have approval from the park board to get that retractable fence in. It would give us another U11 field in the fall, right on the outfield of Stats, kind of similar to where we've had it before.
To take out the existing outfield fence?
It would be, well, number one is I've never seen I don't really understand what a retractable fence is. So maybe somebody else does.
I've seen movable fences that are, but they're pretty expensive, that's why I'm.
Yeah, I think it was around $16,000
Okay,
to put that fence in. Somebody else might know. I'm not sure if it like
Dave,
collapses.
have you seen that?
You can collapse it this way, like this way,
Like an accordion.
or like an accordion,
Okay.
but a $16,000 one is probably the low end. They are very expensive, yes.
the ones I've seen, up at the DeForest complex.
They're similar to that.
They're actually like like those big trolleys you see at
Mhm.
Disneyland that carry people from the parking lot to the
Yeah.
front gate. They're almost like a train, but it's fences on wheels, and they pull them in, get them in place, and then you raise the little mini wheels and it sets the fence down
Oh.
on the ground.
They almost kind of work like a soccer goal in a sense. Once you put it down, the wheels pop up, similar. Not
Okay.
quite, but similar, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, we've got some time, with that one,
Yeah,
since that one would be at the end of the year. I don't want to disrupt baseball at all.
yeah, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think when that field went in, the idea is that fence wouldn't be out there, is that right? Because that does kind of, interfere with a field that could fit right here is probably what you're thinking of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I would support trying to reconfigure this a little bit so that it would allow both uses,
Okay, that'd be great.
but that's up to the board.
Absolutely. Yep, I just bring it up. Yeah.
And
it
this is the other field you're concerned with, right?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it seems to be far, I know that, I think Field 4 in the proposal for JC Park is gonna go kind of right up into that
Yeah.
crossroads to the left, right by Stats.
Yep,
So that field is kind of out of the way, I would hope.
you
Maybe-
may. I think once we get a contractor on board, and we'll be talking about that a little later.
Okay.
We might be able to, they might say, yeah, we're not gonna even be up in that area.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would help,
Yeah.
because lots of games were on JC Park. About 85% of our games were. Okay. Then, thank you for doing that. Windcrest, which is a park, I think, west of RCI, I think. I think Jeff, in a previous meeting, you and I talked about possibly moving that sidewalk. Cause there's a volleyball court that might be not used as much, or it gets weedy and.
Well, yeah, this is the volleyball court, this is the play area, but, this, path right here it's used, but it can be relocated if,
And that would be, and I think what we're trying to do as a field, long ways, and having
Right.
that walkway kind of move maybe to the left side of that.
over to here.
Yeah, would allow us to put, it would be close to the playground. Currently, right now, I think we're doing a practice, the idea is we're gonna do practice only here. And I think,
there was a goal out here, by the way, that.
Yeah, we need to get, the plan is, and maybe, could you have your team remove that?
It's already done.
Oh, it's already, thank you. It's been on my list for,
It was,
Too
I
long.
think it was beyond salvage.
it always should have been, yes,
Okay, good.
absolutely.
Okay.
It-
I was getting a little nervous.
If I had a
with that.
Sawzall and I would have been there, it would have been down already.
It's already done.
I'm glad it was done
We
by
had a
village
complaint
people.
from a resident, and we went out and said, yeah, it's,
I'm happy about that,
yeah.
because that, actually, it's been on my list probably more than 2 years. Um,
So, I mean, relocating a path would obviously allocate some resources. It'd have to be, you know, some sort of, cause I think the neighborhood would still want to maintain that path, but we'd wanna see what you would be gaining by, you're only gonna gain.
It's not much, though. Looking at this
It-
picture, it doesn't seem that much, and it
yeah,
almost doesn't seem
you're
worth it.
You're only gonna gain 23 feet right there, which is probably hard to justify from a cost standpoint.
And maybe it's where I'll get back
But-
with Eric and see exactly, because he's the one who walked it.
Yeah,
And
but
see
it
if
could
he has
be,
that.
you know, I mean, in the future, if you're looking at more of a field like this, you know, you could,
Rather not
Look at-
tear out any trees.
I know.
If I don't have to.
People get kinda touchy about that, because that's a newer area there,
Mhm.
so trees are just getting established.
Yeah. Yeah, let's revisit that one.
Yeah,
Let's,
okay.
yeah, I like looking at it from the big screen.
Yep.
On my little screen, it doesn't maybe look as well. Okay, that was just a thank you to Dan Bertler and you, Lease. I think you might have helped with that, about getting the Miller Dental
Yeah,
field
102
field
Alpine.
reserved. So we're gonna do a practice-only U9 field there, so there's gonna be 2 goals moved there.
Will you be using this area too, or?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep, that's what the next line item is.
Sorry.
No need to be sorry. U7, U8, that's the littlest ones, littlest teams, are going on some of the neighborhood parks. That one, we use collapsible goals. They're aluminum goals. We talked about maybe putting some sheds on those.
Mhm.
I was
We
looking.
We could tuck something back here in this corner. It
Yeah,
would-
I actually
would
had a
not be-
picture of that, like,
Huh?
developed.
They're by our dumpster. correct?
Yeah.
Yep, and, yeah,
Just
that's
don't
where
put
I
them
thought.
inside
of
the
it.
dumpster corral.
I looked at that, but I didn't open it up, but it would actually cross my mind. Cause it would not need to
Pelletier
build-
might recycle them.
Yeah, and then I was wondering, about Bergamot and Stone Ridge. Those are also 2 fields that we were looking at using. I did not go out there to kind of look, but this is I think a 4x6x6 small wood. It's got the wood grain look on the outside. I think a good, what I'll say, blending. It's not like a house siding. And I can send some pictures that you can distribute to the park board, if you want to.
You might be able to,
Look
this
at
might be a nice little spot to tuck it somewhere around over here.
Yeah,
Would that be removed after the season then, or would you?
well, it depends on how long we're gonna be using them.
Yeah.
If it works out nice and, we're also, we're talking about, Judy, you've talked about the, communication plan. We're gonna have the communication plan with our teams. There's the smaller teams, so that helps.
These like
We can
Menards
probably-
kit sheds, if you could build them on skids, I don't know if the park board would consider that, where it's not really, I mean, if they're on skids, they can easily be moved with a Bobcat or something like that if we have to move them for any reason, where they're not really it's not something more permanent like you have out at J.C. Park or
Right.
anything like that, but, I don't see a problem with that, and typically, it's a little shed's a little shed, it's usually not that big of a deal.
Yep, and we can try to go even smaller, but that was one of the smallest sheds that I could see that had the right look, that I think personally would want to go into a park.
How big?
It's 4x6x6.
Oh, you want bigger than that?
I don't think so, because
Really?
these are really small
They're
goals.
not the Rubbermaid things, are they?
Nope,
Okay,
they're aluminum, solid aluminum goals. They pop out. They're about this tall,
okay.
about this wide. They break down into and then all we're gonna have is, I think, 6 sets at each place. Cause we're having we're, kind of spreading out, we're gonna have to buy more, but, that will allow us to, make sure that the right equipment's at the right location for each of the teams. And then okay, that was it for the sheds. The next one is possibly revisiting the rest days at Highlands. And I know it was brought up, and I know it was rejected. But as I was driving here, I was thinking about possibly, about if we utilized like just a minimal amount of time on Sunday, because Saturday and Sunday, most optimal game times, because it's not after school, practices on the weekdays, games on the weekends. So having Sunday as a rest day at Highlands is quite a little bit hard. It's hard because it would really help us out. If we could do a reduced time on Sunday and move our rest days to Tuesday, Thursday, so we're actually using the field the same time, but we're allowing that 5 hours or 6 hours on Sunday to be used for games, and keep Tuesday and Thursday as our rest days.
Yeah, so just for a little bit of background for the park board, since a lot of you weren't here when kind of Highlands came on board, and then I think it was probably spring or winter of 2020 before COVID when you come through with the requests, and I know we're trying to maybe kind of rearrange how this is going through the school district this year, but Highlands and Netherwood had just opened, and we wanted to make sure it was available for families to be able to use the field on one weekend day, and so we kind of designated Sunday as a day of rest for the field to not be played on, but I think we had the ability to do practices and games kind of any other day of the week, right? So how we have kind of had it set up this year is that all the requests were going into Google Sheet. Alex Marks from the school district, from the community ed and rec department was kind of fielding all these requests. So a couple of these I've seen and come from Brian, and so I just responded to him that I think we would want to keep that policy in place, but if that's something the park board wants to revisit. I don't know if we've heard from, the use has been, so weird the last 2 years, but, I'm not sure how the neighborhood use of that field has looked, on the field itself, or if it's more been the trails and the playground.
Yeah, more trails and playground, but I think, cause there's a lot of building going on out there right now, so it's definitely not, filled out.
Yeah.
So the community isn't entirely full right now, so we're not gonna
No,
have
right,
quite
and,
a neighborhood.
I think some of the thought behind that was parents are off on the weekends, and maybe if folks want to come out and have a pickup soccer game or go throw the frisbee or something, it's available more during the daytime when families would be using it, which is also when soccer games are going on too, I understand, but, it's not built like our other neighborhood parks. It does have parking and restrooms and other facilities, but, I guess it's something, up to you guys if you want to allow, a couple hours during the day on Sundays for use of that, or just kind of maintain the policy of it's available 6 days a week for sports organizations, and then,
I think we had it 5 days a week.
5 days.
yeah, 5 days, yeah, and then
Cause we wanted at least some rest for the field, just to be able to give it a chance to recover a little bit.
get the sod
And
established.
the mowing, the sod's pretty much established, we're still getting we're still trying to green it up, I'll be honest with you, it's been kind of frustrating, but, that's just our learning curve with that, but,
I will say, I
No,
think there are quite a few people that have been reserving that shelter for birthday parties and
Yep.
gatherings and things like that, so I imagine some of those people are taking advantage of the field there too, and letting, kids run around and having activities happen there too, so those are probably largely happening on weekends as well.
I mean, I would even be, of course, I'm trying to throw it out, every idea in the book, is maybe 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, you know, so the bulk of the day is available.
What would those hours look like?
Like 9 to noon and,
I think we do 8 o'clock, like 8 to 11, and then I think we can probably do 6 o'clock game. I mean, Sunday, 6 o'clock, I don't think we get many games. So possibly like 3 to 6, so that they'd be done by 7.
So I'm gonna offer a point here. So
yeah, I know
we're this
way
isn't
out
on
of
the
public
agenda
comment.
Yeah.
for discussion or action. So we should put this on a future agenda so that the public's noticed that this is going to be discussed.
Sure.
And it sounds like a lot of your comments are operational matters, which I think you can talk with Jeff and Elise and figure some of those things out. But if there's things that the park board needs to make a decision on, we can put that on the next agenda.
Okay, and then could I make the last point, Martin, or?
Sure.
Okay, it's just about J.C. Park. I heard it's going out for rebid. And I think that, one of the possible proposals that we did talk about in December and in January was possibly, pushing that field 15 into the bid proposal, because it looks like the bids are coming in favorable. And so having that as an option, possibly would get that second green space field for multi-sport use, as well as 3 baseball fields in the bid package. And so that's favorable. And so, just so as a comment about that. Thank you much.
Okay, any questions from the park board? Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, and I apologize for not getting on the agenda, Martin.
Appreciate that very much, so. Any other community input? Hearing none, move on to item 5, reports of village officers. A was village, Public Works Director, Planning, Zoning, updates on the status of park-related projects. So item A was 2022 J.C. Park redevelopment project.
Yeah, so, I'm gonna talk about, there's a memo here later, I won't go through it all together, but, we did go out to bid. We had, 3 bids on the site civil, there were actually 2 contracts. One was site civil work, and the other one is for the site electrical work. And then we have a 3rd contract out to bid right now for the concession stand. And that's still out to bid, and we've not, we opened those, Thursday. Yeah, I know, we're excited about that part. But, so we had 3 bids for contract A, the site civil construction and the general civil construction, and bid 1 and 2 were really close at 3.16 million, and the other one was 3.25 million, and then Parisi Construction was at 3.6 million. They were, we thought, probably where we kind of expected. They were a little high still, but that's what contracts are coming back at. One of the difficulties came back is there was a significant anomaly in the unit price for one item, and that was for the dugout roof structures. And these are very simple structures. They're 6 or 8 posts with a metal roof on the top and fencing, chain link fencing around the rubberized coating chain link fencing. You can see there was a major discrepancy with the low bidder, had those at a total of $564,000, which was extremely high. And we believe it to be possibly an error on their bid. They came back and kind of tried to justify that amount by saying they'd put a whole bunch of money under that account, and we just said, we just didn't feel comfortable with it. So we took it to the village board last night with this memo and a discussion, and the contractor was here to kind of state their case. But basically the village board did reject all 3 bids for the general site construction for that, and we'll be advertising this Thursday and the following week, and then opening bids on the 24th for a rebid of that portion of the project. And we've talked with our legal counsel about this at length, and with Martin, and just as a group we've talked, and it really is probably the cleanest way to go forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had anything on it, you know, following the memo and everything, but that's kind of the status on the site construction. The electrical construction, we had 5 bids. We'll be moving ahead with awarding that once we're able to get a good site bid back. And the concession building is due back this Thursday, and we've had some really good interest on the bidders list for that project as well. So it's all still moving ahead. This is a big project for us, and so a little speed bump along the way like this is not overly concerning. We're not letting it derail the project at all, and it's gonna put it a month later, but on a project like this, we really don't work off of weeks at this point, because we've got a lot of things ahead of us, and we've got a lot of weather and a lot of things that will or will not show up on time. So this is just part of the process.
Questions, comments? Did understand that the village board did move ahead with rebidding it last night.
We did,
so-
yep.
No other questions, comments? All right. Item 5A2, the Oregon Public Library and the referral plan, the village board regarding the permanent conservancy on the remaining Westside Park properties.
Okay.
We got our mega memo here.
Yeah, we're calling, Martin's mega memos, add to the collection. So, as you all have probably been made aware, now the village board selected the Alpine, I think it's gonna be 200 North Alpine Parkway, the address for the new library. So we've moved forward with design with the architects and engineering on that site. That approximate location is shown in that dashed oval there, so near the intersection where Oregon Parks Avenue comes out onto Alpine Parkway. So you can see that'll end up straddling 2 property lines. The former school site is in red, that's its own parcel, and then what's been designated as the Westside Park for many, many years is those 2 parcels in blue to the north. Keller Alpine is the yellow, and then Lerner and a couple others, Dega, are kind of in that green there. So with their recommendation to move forward with this site, the village board also adopted a motion to incorporate some of the suggestions from the Oregon Nature Alliance. They had an ecological assessment and recommendation report, and a lot of those things were things we'll do anyway with the site design to incorporate, you know, stormwater management practices that, you know, incorporate native landscaping and sustainable features for the library, a lot of other just kind of standard construction practices now that we would definitely be incorporating. And those are supposed to be done, you know, to the extent applicable or practicable. So the other element of their motion was to look at making the remainder of the side of the park into some kind of conservancy, similar to how Keller Alpine Meadows is set up, in that it's restricted from future development and everything there. So there is a couple different things to consider with moving forward, and Martin, you know, mentioned that we would need to bring this back to the park board since that's sort of a, you know, current park and part of your wheelhouse for decisions. So a couple things, as we are planning out the library site and where parking lots and stormwater management ponds will go, potential future expansion areas, geothermal field, all of that, we're kind of carving out what will be the library parcel. And we'll ultimately be doing a certified survey map at our next planning commission meeting, which will draw the new boundary lines for the new parcel, which will be handed over to the library board and, you know, contain the library and all of its related uses. So there'll be some remaining lands around that, and I think first we need to determine, you know, where those property lines are so we know kind of what we have left to work with. There are, in terms of putting this land into some kind of, you know, conservancy, there's different ways to go about doing that with different legal instruments, conservation easements, things like that. So those will be things we can explore in the future. The other item to address is that the Westside Park has been shown for I think about 2 decades now as active recreation space. So that's playing fields, playgrounds, you know, basketball, pickleball courts, anything like that. That's kind of always what that side of the park has been intended for. So that would be in current contradiction to what our park plan shows right now. We are due for an update on that. It expires in 23, and so during 2023 we'll be doing a full update on the park plan that, you know, could be moved up, that process. But the next park plan, if we kind of stay on schedule, will be for 2024 through 29, and with that comes all kinds of public information sessions, different, you know, tours of parks. We'll probably, I imagine, hire a planning consultant like Vanderwall to lead that process and kind of help us through all the steps with that. So that's kind of another decision, is do we want to wait for that more holistic view of our park system to take a look at what do we imagine the remainder of this park to be, and what other parks do we want to perhaps look at changing their intended use for. Just looking through the mega memo, see if there was anything else that I missed. Yeah, our comprehensive plan is also due for that update on the same schedule, so it would kind of behoove us to do them together. Definitely they're tied together, and some of those same public meetings and things can be done at the same time. But I think a lot of the information that was included in the memo just provides background on some of the planning that's been done on that site over the years, just to see what could fit. You know, there's definitely some issues with wetlands and grading and terracing of, you know, fields would go there and things like that, but certainly still a very usable piece of property. And I think that's what's important about waiting perhaps for an update to our Park and Rec plan, is we would do kind of a needs analysis of what types of park facilities do we need? Do we need more places for passive recreation? Do we need more playing fields? Do we need more baseball and softball fields? You know, with JC Park being online by then too, we'll have kind of a new mix of fields available. And so I think in the long run that would be my recommendation, to sort of wait and do that plan altogether. Again, that we could start that process a little bit sooner than we had planned in the past. And there are just logistically with the library planning process, the need to kind of wait and see where their lands are going to be. We'll have that established pretty soon here, but open to conversation or comments from the park board about you know, what you see out here and what you would like to see in terms of a process to you know, perhaps get the public involved and or move forward with what the board's recommended for having the remaining bits of those parcels established for more of a passive Conservancy use.
Yeah, so the plan that I kind of outlined here in the memo is, we'll put this on the agenda for April, so give you guys a chance to think about it. There's also a couple of decisions that still need to be made. Actually, the library board hasn't approved the official MOU yet, and I think they're going to do that on Wednesday, so don't want to get ahead of ourselves, so wanted to get the information to you now, and we can think about it, and we'll come back in April to chart a path forward.
When the library area is designated, then that becomes the library board's.
Yeah, once the village designates lands and a building for library use, it comes under the control of the library board at that time. So that's why we need to figure out the parcels, reconfigure them, and so make sure that the village is giving what it wants to give to the library board, and making sure that that's clean and understood. And so once that happens, like Elise said, we'll know what we're working with as far as the remaining pieces of the land, and then we can all talk about what we want to do with that moving forward.
So is that space now, would it be projected to build this first round, or is that the space they want, like, to renovate and add on in the future?
I think the parcel would include kind of everything for, but could be anticipated for maybe the next 80 years or something, so we don't have to go back and redraw parcel lines or take land away from what's remaining of the park. So yeah, I would include parking lots, stormwater management, ponds, areas for future expansion, geothermal, field, the building, and then perhaps maybe some areas for outdoor programming that the library maybe isn't planning right now, but if they want to put in a small pavilion or gazebo or something where they could have outdoor story time, something like that. But I think we're definitely going to stay within that 4-acre number that we were sharing during some of the, site selection process. That's kind of either that or perhaps smaller if it doesn't look like that much land will be needed. But that bubble there is about 4 acres. So
Okay.
it's just a matter of kind of where it goes. There's wetlands on both sides too, and a buffer around that. So we're sort of bound within a certain envelope anyway. It's just kind of a matter of where does that parcel end up sitting.
Couple questions. Can you hear me, Dan? Last time Dan said he couldn't hear me. Thank you. Are the Keller, Alpine, and the Lerner Conservation Park, are those permanent conservancies as well, or just village parks?
Great question. And both were formed before any of us, our time here. I do believe that the Keller Alpine is under a permanent conservancy, just because a lot of this was funded under the stewardship, the Nelson Olson Stewardship Grant. And that grant doesn't get given to anything that has any what would call active, like bike ride or motorized, kind of activity or playing fields or something like that. It's always paths and nature and that type of stuff. So I think it's a great question, but yeah, I know that this is, we've always kind of looked at this as being the passive recreation end of things.
Yeah.
And to keep in mind too, just one of the things I know that, we've got Lerner Park, which is very passive nature recreation. Daga Park, the former Florida Avenue site. But then if we go on a larger map, I'm just gonna go here. Let's see here. Have to wake it up. And this is, the time frame of this is a little unknown, but the village will be assuming, under a agreement we already have, we'll be assuming all of the Hermson property
Right.
and that is definitely in a long-term conservancy,
Right.
very strict, no development. I mean, it's even questionable whether we could even put an outhouse or any kind of even a pit privy out there or something like that someday. So it's very, very restricted. So we have a lot of natural areas here.
I guess my question really is if we're going to, if we were to go ahead and make the Westside Park a permanent conservancy, but it's not a budding one, then we maybe can create any potential issues in the future, where the future village board or park board decide, well, this would be a good place to put soccer fields. Now, we have this conservancy abutting a recreational area.
Mhm.
So it's not something that we're making a decision right now, but just an observation.
There are other, right now, a lot of that Westside Park land has been farmed. So there could be a decision that maybe we don't go as far as putting in some sort of legal conservation easement, but perhaps farming stops and we sort of let the land go back to its natural state. A lot of that land is not going to be buildable. There's some stormwater management ponds already established. There's a wetland buffer, so it'll just kind of be a decision of how restrictive and how long term does the park board and then in turn the village board want to have that land be existing within.
I think when this came into discussion, 3 years ago, it was 3 or 4 years ago, prior to COVID and kind of putting the brakes on a lot of stuff. We were under a lot of pressure from the sports organizations because we were, and continue to always be, Brian's still here, short of fields, you know, and short of fields for a lot of the sports, and that included baseball, it included soccer, lacrosse, rugby was practicing out in a farm field out off of the racetrack road out there somewhere, and very smart use of areas and stuff, but so we were under a lot of pressure, and I think that's what was really pushing. This was a piece of land that the village owned that did have some high ground that could be used for playing field development. But I think we've always kept our minds open as far as are there better areas that require, say, less earth moving and better parking and that type of stuff. And we're continuing to evaluate some pretty interesting parcels that I'm not even gonna talk about where they are, but just that are, you know, might be better opportunities for large scale, multiple field development. Because I think Brian would say, would you agree that you'd much rather have, say, 10 or 15 fields all at one spot rather than a field here, a field there, a field there? I think it's much better for tournaments and play, and when parents have kids in multiple groups and that type of stuff. So we're continuing to look for opportunities like that could replace the need for fields at this location.
What's the timeline for the Autumn Ridge fields?
Great question. The contractor's not required to grade that to a final grade until, that was part of the whole brouhaha at the very end, till they went into phase 2. We're anticipating that they're going to grade phase 2 this next summer. They haven't approached us yet with the plans to finish that connection through to Ridgeview, but we've kind of, we felt like Glenn might move that
Yeah, I
second
think a lot of the lots-
phase 2B, I think it is.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the lots in
Are
phase
sold.
2A are already sold, so
Yeah.
you can probably move forward with finishing out that phase.
Ideally, at the earliest, it would be this fall. At the latest, it would probably be a year from this fall.
And do you know how many fields are anticipated for that, or?
One.
Okay.
One large field, yeah. But that could be, I think there's one large field usually splits into 2 smaller, 2 or 3, depending on what size smaller fields you're talking about.
Go ahead, Phil.
The only other question I had, just for my information, is what is the total size of the Westside Park from Netherwood to CC, including the library site? So basically what sizes, anyone know what
You
size?
can
All-
probably quick math
All
that.
of this area is what you're talking
Yes,
about? Okay.
right, about, roughly,
I have to remember how to do my area on this one.
I think it's maybe
Here it is. Measured.
9.
well, I did that at home, Jeff, I thought you had something more sophisticated.
Well, we can
no.
also just click on the parcels and add up the
Yeah.
totals. I know the entirety of kind of that block between Alpine and, not all the way to Burr Oak, but kind of the edges of, Lerner Park there, the eastern edge is about 200 acres, that whole chunk.
That whole chunk.
It looks like it's around about 40 acres.
Yeah, let's see.
No,
Just a hair.
39.
I said about 40.
39.2.
Yeah, so
35.
maybe
So
minus
40
4,
acres.
you're
Yeah,
in,
30.
yeah, 34, 35 range, so.
So 35 and 4.
Right.
Okay, that's all I have then, thank you.
Any questions or other comments?
I just have one more question, or comment. So last year, there was a different person representing soccer. I don't remember all the specifics, or maybe it was 2 years. Well, I haven't been here for 2 years. But he was talking about taking a field and making, like a cornfield or something, and making soccer fields, and talking to the county, or is this ringing a bell?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that.
Is there any?
Glad of it.
But Ben,
Yeah, that was Ben Cowan.
I think that's
he-
morphed into a coffee shop at this point.
It's now serving, that park is now
Pancakes.
serving French toast,
To be
yes.
clarified, he definitely does not represent soccer.
No,
Yes.
it
No,
has,
no.
I was just gonna say, he has nothing to do with soccer. Nothing, nothing
No,
at all.
He was trying to make an effort to kind of get some sports organizations together on
Okay.
reservation system and some like forms and things like that, and he had been looking at some opportunities for some kind of land, off Union and Lincoln, to have kind of a soccer or a playing field complex, with restrooms and a parking lot and things. As far as
Likewise,
we've
there are
heard-
other organizations that were involved that also weren't represented properly in that too, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was
but-
my first meeting, so,
Yeah, I don't think that's been moving forward.
okay.
Yeah, we currently don't have any active negotiation with any property owners or anything, or groups that are pushing for Oregon Redden Park or something like that, but we are working behind the scenes when we do see parcels that might be smart to think about, and we talk to those developers or we talk to those landowners and just say, this might be a good opportunity for you.
So the village board has brought this back to the park board for consideration for looking again in April. And they're looking for the park board to come up with some direction to offer up to the park.
Yeah, recommendations and things to consider that would be sent back up to the village board.
Okay,
I'd like your input.
okay.
So, as I understand it, if Mike's here, he might be able to help. We're going to be following generally the recommendations of Oregon, what's the name of it?
Nature Alliance.
Nature
Thank
Alliance.
you. So is that something that we're gonna wanna work within those parameters, or?
So it's entirely up to the park board.
Oh.
The issue obviously came up at the village board. The decision was made about the library. The village board wants to consider the remaining lands to be placed in Conservancy, and they referred this possibility to the park board for your advice and recommendation. So whatever you think is in the best interest of
Great.
what you do as the park board.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Very good. Thank you for, Jeff, for that insight. So item 5,
Well,
let's see, we are 5A3, creation of the community service coordinator position.
So this job description was before all of you at the last meeting, and had a good discussion on it. It went to the village board last night, and they approved it. And so we'll be going out for applicants probably sometime in early summer-ish. And I also addressed, and we talked about it a little bit at the park board, but where this position will report to. Ultimately decided that it would report to Elise's position. And we're gonna do a little retooling of her position as well to better reflect everything that she's doing in her capacity. So that was approved by the board, and we're gonna keep moving forward with that, so.
Any questions or comments? Wonderful, thank you. 5A4, public recreation use of the lease on 102 Alpine Parkway. Is that for you?
So this is the Dan Bertler former Great Dane parcel. It may or may not ever happen, but right now it's not planned for any immediate development. So we reached out to Dan Bertler a couple weeks ago. He said he'd be happy to renew the lease for this land to be used for recreation space for this year. So I think as soon as it's signed, it's in effect, and then it'll go through, I think, November 15th of this year, unless something else comes up. But get this land for $1 for the majority of the year, and I think you guys have been mowing it. You guys mowed it last year,
we've been taking
right?
care of it.
So,
Mhm.
but yeah, we appreciate his willingness to let us use that property, and hopefully this year it gets used some more too. So, that's pretty much the update, but that's all been
Awesome.
approved at the village board last night, so that'll be, hopefully, as soon as the snow melts, we'll see some use out there.
It's melting quickly. Awesome, thank you very much. Item 6, communication and miscellaneous business. There's really nothing identified. One of the value I thought would be worthwhile to continue to contribute is what other parks are doing as well. And so I still pay attention to what's happening in Anderson Park. So I'd just like to share a little bit of what's going on in regards to that. They continue to chainsaw and doing a great job clearing out evasives, and so they've done a lot of work in that area. They did go out and plant wild seed into a field that's to the east of the primary prairie that they have. So they got that planted this last month and a half. So looking forward to more prairie land. That's going to enhance the opportunity for native birds. One of the challenges they had with a smaller prairie is that some of the native birds weren't necessarily living as much as they can. The other thing is that they have continued on with their dog park, and it's gotten a great engagement, so strongly encouraged the use of that, but make sure you get your dog's license for the county, as well as the village, right? Make sure you recognize that. But also they have consistently done maple tapping, and so there is currently a bunch of trees. And I've watched that over the years. They have like 100 buckets. I tried to count them one time. I don't know if they have quite as many. A few of them lost to their land due to the bike path. And they do that, the Anderson Park does that, kind of a trade-off. One of the individuals can tap the trees, but part of it is what they need to do is then educational. So that's the trade-off. It's not just purely for their benefit. They also have to educate some of the youth. So just thought I'd share some of the other parks, so certainly appreciate what they're doing, and we can collaborate as well. So, item 7, any unfinished business? Jen has none. Item 8, new business items that prepared for discussion. Discuss items and potential improvements for the John Blanchard Dog Park. We had talked about that in the past, and we had individuals spoke that requested to do a few things. Some of the things didn't feel comfortable with. Has anything else developed out of that particularly?
I have some notes on that, Jeff. Basically, she was asking for 4 items, and I thought maybe we could just run down a little quick.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One was the handrail, and I guess, in each of these cases, maybe you could tell us if that's, a bad idea, maybe it's mowing, maybe it's snow plowing, maybe it's liability.
Yeah, as far as the handrail, and I don't, at this point, I don't think either of those areas, I mean, they're natural areas, so I don't think they have to follow like ADA requirements, but the minute we start to pave or provide that type of thing, then I think it changes, and we have to do some major, I think, reconfiguring, probably the zig and zag down the hill. I know the one individual is offering to do it for the large dog park, but it wouldn't make sense just to do it at one dog park and not the others. The dog parks, and the dog parks were kind of a few years before I began here, and I think at the time the village didn't have a dog park, obviously, and there was a piece of land that was like, hey, let's put it down here. It is the lowest piece of land in the village. It's the muckiest piece of land in the village. It's not ideal land, but it's worked well for a dog park. And I'll be honest with you, I see a ton of usage out there. And I'm thrilled to see a ton of usage out there, whether they're buying passes or not, really, it's not for us to police that. Well, it is, but we're not, we're not making a big deal out of it or anything, but, I think it's a great asset for the village. When you go out to the county dog park, I've walked out there quite a bit, and it's very, very well done, but it's upland area. They probably spent $1 million out there, and I would love to spend $1 million here, but
It's very icy.
$1 million so we could put about 6 feet of topsoil on top there and build it up. But as far as the entrances go, where we left it last time is, we were gonna make sure that my staff was following, to make sure that the gravel's, clear. This time of year is difficult. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we had every sidewalk in the village was 100% ice everywhere, you know, and, so it's really challenging at times to be able to, especially in the parks and stuff this time of year, to be able to kind of try to guarantee a safe experience all the time. My response was, I don't know if we wanna go down that road with, handrails and that type of stuff. I understand what they're asking it for, and I know the people they're asking it for on their behalf. I applaud them for thinking of their safety and that type of stuff, but,
So it's unimproved property or land, and so therefore
exactly.
improving
You know,
it
the
changes
improvements-
the environment.
The improvements that we've made over the years, you know, when I started here, we really just had the paths down there. We added the large, you know, kind of big gravel areas here because there literally were just mud pits right at the beginning. So we came in and put about 16, 18 inches of gravel on top of some geogrid fabric down here, and that's held up really well. We mow it. I've instructed my staff to just, like on the large dog park, to mow, you know, a large area for like the chuck it balls type stuff. But then, since this is such a large parcel, I've instructed them just to keep paths through here and let this go along. We mow it maybe once or twice a year. Some people love that. I get emails every year, I love it. Other years say we're being lazy and we're mow it all. And we know where that goes.
Is there any value in doing a burn for that?
I don't think so. It's not, it's actually, I mean, we've thrown a lot of seed down there throughout the years, before I was here, and we do spray it occasionally, to try to control the weeds. When we do that, we obviously block off the dog park for about a week. But, it is a tough piece of land to maintain.
Yeah.
But as long as it's relatively dry, the mowing is about the best thing we've done,
Yep,
you
no,
know, to it.
it gets good shape.
I think you've actually covered the other items. They all fit under the unimproved notion, except for one. And I did note that one of the items she asked about was a street light, and I know that there is one on, the streetlights end on the curb there, as you well know.
Yeah.
On the outer edge of that,
I think adding a street light or two there is a great idea.
Do you know, is the electrical infrastructure in place for that, or would you have to?
I would almost guarantee it is, but let me add that, because, you know, maybe if even a street light that would be split right here between the dog parks, or, you know, one at each entrance,
Yeah,
would be
'cause-
nice.
Yeah. Like I said, there are streetlights on the, heading south on Park, but they do end there, so maybe just coming off of that makes it less of a project.
So, yeah, so typically, when we add streetlights, it's almost all developer driven, you know, and where we require, developers, and we would require this of us, is we would buy the streetlights outright, the pole, the installation, and the fixture. And then we only pay a maintenance fee to, Alliant Energy for them. And we would do the same, they would just add that as another part of our tariff for that. But it would probably be, it'd be an expenditure of probably $3,000 to $6,000, $3,000 to $7,000
Okay.
would be my estimate.
So, would we, at this point then, and thanks, Jeff,
Yeah.
would we, at this point then, put that on the agenda for the park board to recommend to the board? Is that what?
Why don't I just get some information on
Yeah.
it and bring
Okay.
it back to you guys? There's really, days are getting longer, thank goodness.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, that type of work is something we would do late summer, early fall, or have them, you know,
We've been
schedule it.
mowing and
So we've got plenty of time for it and everything, but, I think that's a nice idea.
Okay, that's all I have, and thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks.
So 8B, review of the annual endowment distribution to the Oregon Parks from the Madison Community Foundation and determine the use of it.
Can I add something to 8A
Certainly,
quickly?
certainly.
For the dog park, to possibly encourage more people to register, like the trail use, the daily use at state park trails or whatever, one of those boxes.
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again?
So to possibly encourage more people to register their dogs, if we could get one of those boxes like you see at state trails with an envelope, write their name on there, throw the money in there.
Oh, a
Yeah,
self-registration.
thank you.
I thought you were meaning like the electronic
Yeah.
one.
Well, that would be really
I'm
nice,
like,
but
wow. They're like probably $5,000-6,000 and we'll get,
So-
just the paper version.
yeah, I see what you're saying. That's,
We could price
look-
that out.
We could look into that, yeah.
Like Dane County, just a pipe with it that you drop in, a little padlock on it.
I guess with the passes, there are, you know, they are dog tags.
Yes.
So we'd have to figure out maybe somebody,
They-
you know, they tear off a receipt and then there's a
We
processing
would
fee
mail
or
them-
something, then
we
we
would
mail
mail
them
them.
their
Yeah.
tags later.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's how.
I have noticed signs down at the new Dane County Park that says, your Oregon Dog Park Pass does not,
Yeah.
Yes.
does not qualify you to use
Yes.
this park, you know, so I
Dog
think we
park
should be very
wars.
clear on that to make sure everyone understands that,
Well,
but,
that's a good.
but yeah, I think maybe we'll look into that, like a little payment box or, something.
Eagle Scout project.
That would be a good
Thank
Eagle
you.
Scout project.
Yes, it would be. Item B, the annual endowment. You touching that?
So, I have a question for the park board. Does anybody know the history of the endowment fund?
Very little. Judy, do you remember anything about that?
Is that that's not the money they get from, to put towards trees and stuff like
is-
that?
It is.
It is,
Okay.
okay. All
Yeah,
right.
every year we just allocate it towards trees.
Right, that's what we used to
Or
do.
streetlights maybe.
Do you-
$1,000.
do you know,
They have to be
Looking at
waterable,
street
Phil.
do you know the origin of when this came about?
No.
Okay.
I just always remember asking Mike, what is this? Sometimes it's like $500 or $600, $700. This year it's
Yeah.
done well. We should have invested in them.
In the past, it's been about $600 to $700
Yeah.
a year, and it's always gone towards putting trees along
Yep.
different areas.
Yeah.
That's what it used to be.
Staff with it, yeah.
And I think there's probably a balance in that if Lisa's keeping track of that.
Well, so the funds sit at the Madison Community Foundation. I think it might say what the principal is.
Well, that's the funds, but I mean, the allotment that they give us, I think they mail out in a check every year.
Yeah, and we receive that,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's, there's a principal amount in the endowment, and then we get to spend the distribution of interest or whatever, however it's set up. But yeah, it must have been set up at one time at the community foundation, they manage it, and we get a distribution every year. It's in the Oregon Parks Board name, so.
Hmm.
For what you've been able to find, it's not limited on its use, it's
Nope.
just park.
Just park board.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put it towards the lights, yeah. I mean, it's not like we have to report back to them the use, it's not like a
Nope.
grant or anything, so. Okay.
What kind of action should we take in regards to that?
Well, do you
Just put it in the
wanna-
funds and,
You just wanna wait until we come back
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
these two other items that we just talked about? Maybe we can put it
Sounds
towards
appropriate.
those.
Sure.
awesome, very good. Item 8C, any other future items and for future assignments? Does anybody in the park board have any items that they look for the future?
Future agenda?
Yes, any agenda items?
I guess I'd like a little understanding of the funding mechanism, for instance, of what we talked about tonight. Does the park board have funds that they can spend at their discretion with the village board approval, or is everything, we recommend whatever we feel like, and the village board then?
Yeah.
Not a six-page memo.
Sure. No mega memos.
Save your time.
Nice salivating over there.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, another memo.
Yeah, no, we can do that.
Yeah,
Like
That
kind of
could
like
be a good
park,
exercise.
park improvement funds, we could explain a little bit about park acquisition
Yeah.
funds. and
Yeah, there's a
kind
lot of
how
different
those will
buckets.
be
We
used.
make proposals, maybe, make it
I know some of it is limited to land only, that we can only use it to purchase land.
I
Right.
see.
And some of it, like the impact fees are
Improvements.
improvements, anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's the operations budget. And
That's right.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
All right, thank you.
We could do that, that would be great. Any other items, any other comments that the park board would like to make this evening? Okay, hearing none.
So I'm gonna put the soccer stuff on the next
Yes.
agenda. And then we'll talk about Westside Park, and then some of the dog park items, and then the budget stuff.
That sounds great. Awesome. Very good. Call for an adjournment?
So moved.
Dave, second? Thank you. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a great night. Sun is set now, Phil.